Now you'd think my job was quite straightforward, but every now and again you do need some quite specialised equipment, and today's one of those days. And why? Because of this thing, Alfa GTV. It's got a 3 litre 24 valve V6, 0 to 60 in just over 6.5 seconds. So what specialist equipment do I need? It's not a crash helmet, it's my oven gloves, because my mum always said, be careful when you're messing with hot things. Now just before we go for a drive, I've got to show you this. These days most manufacturers, they put a big plastic cover over the engine that says don't mess with it. Not Alfa, just check that out. Absolutely gorgeous. You could frame that and put it on the mantelpiece, but to me that just says that this car is hot. Now I've got rid of the oven gloves because although I'm daft, I'm not that daft enough to try and drive a car with them, but especially not this one. 200 brake horsepower and front wheel drive, well, it's a little bit interesting. You put your foot down in first and second, pulling away, and you get a lot of torque effect through that steering wheel, so there's no one-handed cruising business whilst pulling away with the lights. But it certainly makes life interesting. Now I'll come back to the engine in a minute, but to deal with the interior, everything about this car says style and individuality. I like the way the dials are laid out, the seats, they're all laid out a little bit differently, and even the way the actual switches work, that sort of thing, it just gives you that feel that someone's actually spent a lot of time almost handcrafting this car. Now if I was being picky, a couple of things that I don't like on the car, the seats, although they look gorgeous, I'd like a little bit more side support, because with 220 horsepower to play with, you're going to be giving it some stick around the corners. And the biggest downfall really with any coupe is headroom. Legroom's fine, but I have to scoot down a little bit to see through that windscreen. And as for the back seats, well, don't be thinking you'll be giving the local basketball team a lift home. That's purely shopping space, because there ain't much of that in the boot either. So back to the engine, well, it's absolutely amazing. First of all, the sound. You can never beat the sound of an Alfa anyway, and it feels really purposeful and business-like. But the actual torque that's produced, as I say, you've got 6 gears to play with, and all through the gears, all through the rev range, it's pulling. Even in 6th gear at 1500 revs, you put your foot down and that's it, you're away. And the main thing with the car, with the engine coupled to that awesome Alfa chassis, it just feels to give you a lot more feedback than, say, the Audi TT, which although is a fantastic ride, it's almost perhaps too refined. This feels a lot more like a driver's car, more like a racing car, I guess, and perhaps a little bit more fun. Well, I can honestly say that this Alfa is the most exciting car I've driven in a long way. Alright, it might not have the stopping ability of the TT, and that torque steer can be a little bit disconcerting, but really that just adds to the excitement of it. And I think the other good thing about the Alfa is it's not pigeonholed in its image. You could see a young executive showing off his style in it, or maybe even your dad reliving his youth. They're all going to get a heck of a lot of fun out of this car. And if you're prepared to give it some stick, it'll give you plenty back.